Welcome back. David grew up as a shepherd, but was anointed to be the next king of Israel after Saul. Could you imagine what that event must have looked like? Jesse had already paraded David's 7 older brothers before Samuel, and Yahweh had rejected every single one of them. Samuel asked Jesse, "Do you have any more?" Jesse's response, "Well, there remains yet the youngest, and there he is keeping the sheep." I can't imagine what David must have thought when a servant came running out into the fields and said that he needed to make haste to get back to the sacrifice because Samuel wanted him for something. Remember, when Samuel first came into the town, the elders were fearful. They were concerned. "Did you come in peace?" "I came in peacefully." What David must have thought then, as he ran back to town to find out what he was wanted for. When David arrived, immediately he was anointed with oil by Samuel. He would pour the oil over top of his head. Could you imagine what David's older brothers might have been thinking? I mean, they had been paraded before Samuel one at a time. And specifically, the conversation happening between Samuel and Jesse. Yahweh hasn't chosen this one. Yahweh hasn't chosen this one. In fact, remember Samuel, when he first saw Eliab, the first one, thought, "Well, this clearly has got to be him." And Yahweh said to him, "No, you need to change the way you think. You're thinking like the world. You're looking on the outward appearance. I don't look at the outward appearance. I look at the heart." The anointing of David was in 1 Samuel 16. 1 Samuel 17, we read about the taunting of Goliath. The Philistine and Israelite armies had faced off, but Goliath kept coming out to challenge the Israelite to championship warfare. That's when a champion would come out from each army, and they would oppose each other in representationally of each of the armies. Winner takes all. So if the Philistine champion would win, then the Israelites would become the servants of the Philistines. If the Israelite champion would win, then the Philistines would become the servants of the Israelites. Goliath was 9 feet tall. The Israelite army shook in their armor, all nervous. David had 3 older brothers, the 3 oldest brothers actually, who were serving in Saul's army at the time. They were there as Goliath kept coming out. Jesse asked David to take his brothers some food and to get word regarding them. And so David got the food and he went out to the army to give his brothers the food. And when he got there, he saw Goliath coming out and challenging the Israelite army and defying Yahweh, defying the name of Yahweh himself. David asked the soldiers standing around, "What shall be done for the man who kills the Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" When he asked those questions, his brothers were standing there and overheard it and weren't very pleased with him. We read in verse 28 of 1 Samuel 17, says that now Eliab, his oldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men, and Eliab's anger was aroused against David. And he said, "Why did you come down here? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the insolence of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle." Sadly, surprisingly, sometimes the enemies of the work of Yahweh, in and through you, can be those of your own household. It's David's own brothers rejecting what they had seen and what they had known about their younger brother, mocking their younger brother. Well, you know the rest of the story. David fights Goliath in the name of Yahweh, and Yahweh grants him the victory. Saul then becomes jealous of David and seeks to kill him numerous times, even to the point of chasing him around the wilderness. In the end, Saul was killed by the Philistines, and David becomes the king of Judah and then all of Israel. each step of the way, Yahweh honored David as David honored Yahweh. Jesus shared a parable in Luke 14, verses 8 to 11. He said, "When you are invited by anyone to a wedding feast, do not sit down in the best place, lest one more honorable than you be invited by him. And he who invited you in him come and say to you, 'Give place to this man,' and then you begin with shame to take the lowest place. But when you are invited, go and sit down at the lowest place, so that when he who invited you comes, he may say to you, 'Friend, go up higher.' Then you will have glory in the presence of those who sit at the table with you. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted." As you go before the King today, the King, rejoice in how he has exalted you, allowing you to be called by his name and sharing in his adoption. He has given you an inheritance that does not fade away. He has called you by a name that is great. Go, pray, and have a blessed day.